It's been a week since our last show, but it may as well have been a lifetime. Because the last time I addressed you, we still lived in a world where everyone knew you don't trade a 25-year-old perennial MVP candidate who doesn't want to leave. Luka for AD was so mind-boggling that I genuinely considered whether there was a Doncic-related scandal waiting to be exposed. Surely this couldn't be explained in basketball terms, right? Well, Mavs GM Nico Harrison tried, citing defense and culture while Coach Kid's face told the real story. Concerns about Doncic's defense, conditioning, and endless whining to the refs are all valid, especially when he was due for a $345 million extension this summer. But few, if any, stars are perfect. Those are concerns you simply learn to live with as a trade-off for employing one of the greatest offensive talents ever. The only players worth trading Doncic for at this stage of their careers are Victor Wembanyama, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Nikola Jokic. Deciding to move Doncic was unconscionable. That Dallas then negotiated with one team, and not a team with stockpiles of draft picks or young talent, was malpractice. The Lakers didn't even have enough to land a third-rate star to play with LeBron and AD. Or so we thought. The same franchise that placed a massive bet on Kyrie Irving's unpredictability 2 years ago somehow decided Luka's conditioning was where to draw the line. So they traded him for an injury-prone big man who's 6 years older. Got it. We often cite this league in reference to how dramatic and unpredictable the association has become. But no one could have cooked this deal up in their most deranged trade machine fever dream. And with that, welcome to the Unfiltered Show from the Score Studios. My name is Joseph Casciaro. My distinguished guest today, co-host of a Hello and Welcome podcast, Mr. William Liu.
What's going on, Cash? Always happy to be here with you in studio to talk about one of the greatest trades that we have ever seen for the LA Lakers.
Man, forget for the LA Lakers, forget for the NBA. This is like one of the most shocking trades in sports history. You probably, like Gretzky from Edmonton to LA in 1988. Obviously, we weren't alive for that, but huge. Gretzky was already known as maybe the greatest player ever and had won multiple cups, so even bigger, but still that. Maybe Kareem to the Lakers in 1975. Notice the pattern here. All-time greats going to LA all the time. But in the NBA, we're looking at least 50 years. In sports history, we're looking at least 37 years since a trade of this magnitude. And this one has the unique distinction of happening mid-season.
Yeah. This is how blessed the Lakers are. This isn't necessarily even the greatest Laker trade of all time. Because I would argue, obviously you never knew what would have happened, but Vlade Divac for Kobe Bryant on draft day is also pretty damn good.
Yeah. No, that's
so.
Dude, the Lakers, they can't keep getting away with it, man.
Yeah, it's somewhere above Kwame Brown for Pau Gasol.
Yeah. But again, the fact that Kwame Brown for Pau Gasol has not, well, I guess technically, I mean, you could say it's Marc Gasol for Pau Gasol because he wasn't included in that. Okay, but at the time,
I'll give you that.
At the time, it looked terrible. And even for how bad that looked at the time, it's not even in the friggin' universe of this deal. It's unbelievable. So help me make sense of it if you can. Is there any way in your mind that you can even pretend to play devil's advocate? Like we were talking before we went on air here about how like this is turning us into conspiracy theorists because like something has to have happened. Is there any way you could play devil's advocate here?
You would have to kind of dig into conspiracy. Like, I've seen all the conspiracies about how the new Mavericks owners, they don't care about the Mavs. They're heavily invested in, trying to build a new casino in the Dallas area, and that doesn't seem to be going anywhere in terms of, like, the legislature. They might want to threaten to move the Mavs to Vegas, and if you make the Mavs as terrible as possible, you can do it. It's a crazy theory. I don't buy that at all. And also, there's that aspect. There's the other aspect of just, like, Nico Harrison doesn't even plan to be a GM long-term. Maybe he wants to get a Laker statue because if you go to Staples or I guess Crypto, you will see like 7 statues out there. And granted, they've had so many great players. Like none of them are undeserved. It's like Shaq and Magic and Kobe and another Kobe statue, et cetera. So Kareem, of course. But I mean, honestly, at this rate, Nico should at least get a little plaque under the new Luka statue when they eventually build.
Give him one of those Sixers-sized statues. You know the ones the Sixers do for their players, like the AI one, and they look like lawn gnomes. At least give Nico Harrison that one. This is unbelievable. And even with like, I saw the same kind of fan conspiracy theory out there about the owners, they want to like devalue the Mavericks so much that the NBA actually approves them going to Vegas. The reason I would never buy that is the NBA can make and will make so much money via expansion fees when they eventually add 2 more teams that everyone assumes are Vegas and Seattle, that it would make no financial sense for them.
Yeah.
Even if, forget the fact that the Dallas is one of the biggest markets in the NBA. Even if we were talking about a small market team, the NBA still wouldn't want them to move to Vegas because that would eliminate the expansion fee they're going to get from Vegas. So I understand why people are throwing out conspiracy theories. Like I said, I legit sat there on Saturday night being like, maybe I should wait a day to write something because maybe something's going to come out of like Luka and it's like why they traded him. But no, if you listen to Nico Harrison, it genuinely sounds like he thinks and thought this was the best basketball decision to make.
This is kind of nuts because he also even went out of his way to be like, you know what, I only dealt with the Lakers on this. You know, and by the way, Luka did not give me any indication that I wouldn't resign. If he wouldn't resign, for some reason, if he was like, I'm determined to leave Dallas, even though there's a $345 million supermax on the table for me, but I don't want that. I'd rather take less money to go elsewhere. Maybe I would understand to some degree of like, okay, you got to get off the contract. I would still try to get a better return than just AD, right? Exactly. You could have done anything. I would have loved to even seen the chaos as a fan of the league, seen the chaos of like, what if Dallas made a call to Milwaukee and said, would you give me Giannis? Like, I just want the chaos. I want the drama of that. Yeah.
And honestly, man, I think Milwaukee, okay, maybe Giannis is one where they, even though in a vacuum, based on their ages, I'd probably trade Giannis for Jokic. Maybe Milwaukee doesn't because maybe they look at it as like, the chances Luka would resign there are unlikely. And whereas with Giannis, we have all this built-up rapport and we would do it. But they would have to
Giannis keeps dropping crumbs that he's leaving.
But they would have to at least think about it. And that was my point. Is like there's only 3 guys for sure I wouldn't trade Doncic for. And
wait, who are those 3 guys for you?
Wembanyama, Shea, and Jokic. Even Jokic at like 30, I still wouldn't. I just think he's such like a... But other than those 3, who would it be? Like, it's insane. And to your point, yeah, even if Luka wanted out, which he didn't, and telegraphed his preferred destination like De'Aaron Fox did, and so it kind of suppressed his trade value, I'm still convinced they could have done more than what they ultimately got.
Yeah, the fact that the Lakers still have assets left over is outrageous.
Dude, that's what I'm saying.
Like, the Lakers, when they traded for AD, gave up every single thing they had. Right, they were like, you know what, take it. All the second overall picks that we had, Ingram, you want Lonzo Ball. We'll just give you all these picks. Josh Hart, you know, like a whole bunch of guys just got thrown in there. It was like, you're gonna take him because we're gonna run your pockets at least because you're getting AD in the deal.
Yeah.
In this situation, they're like, nah, AD and Max Christie, that's it. Go ahead, man.
It's
you can still keep Dalton Connect. It's fine.
Man, it's nuts. It is absolutely unfathomable. And like Harrison talked about, or at least it was in that Ramona Shelburne ESPN story, looking into like how this deal came together. You know, they met at the coffee shop in Dallas and all this stuff. And it's in there that like, oh, Nico Harrison really appreciated how Rob Pelinka kept to his word of like keeping this quiet because they wanted to keep it tight. You know why he kept it quiet? It's not because of your long-term friendship and you guys going back to when you were a Nike rep and he was Kobe's agent. It's because he knew that if this got out to anyone and it started leaking around the league, that either A, the Mavericks, someone would step in and maybe be like, when the fervor, like shit hit the fan, the Mavericks ownership, someone would be like, oh, it looks like everyone's going to be really mad if we do this. We can't do it. Or if things got out and other teams found out, then Pelinka knew the Lakers' offer would get blown away. So, like, just Nico Harrison is so delusional. If you go by what he's saying, the fact that he thinks, like, Pelinka kept it quiet out of some friendship and loyalty, like, no, man.
They basically tipped them for good service, too. They're like, you know what? We're not going to give you that. You know what? Take that first-round pick. Keep that in your pocket, okay? We'll just take AD and just call it a day. Yeah, what's up?
Didn't the Mavs give up a second-rounder in the deal, too?
Yeah, well, they tipped the Jazz to take on some salary because the Lakers were like, well, we got to get rid of Jalen Hood-Schifino, which, is, by the way, is going to be the greatest trivia answer in 10 years. Will be like, who did Utah land in the 3-way trade that involved AD and Luka? Yeah,
Jalen Hood-Schifino. Oh man, I mean, we can talk about this for days, and I'll never get it. We can talk about it for years, and we will, because it's gonna haunt Dallas for years, and I'll never get over it.
Okay, just to play devil's advocate, is there any way for Dallas to come out of this looking at least somewhat okay?
You have to basically win a championship.
Yeah,
you have to win a championship, which I don't think they're capable of doing as presently constructed. But at least then, if you win a champ, like you know. flags fly forever, banners hang forever.
Sure.
That's literally the whole point of this. It's what it's why you want a player like Luka, because it gives you the fastest track and gives you the most sustainable chance to win one. And even one is a once in a lifetime thing for a lot of franchises. So if they win a title with Kyrie and AD being some unstoppable duo and the supporting cast they built there, then he can have a last laugh, because there's no guarantee. Luka would have kept them sustainable for X number of years, but there's never a guarantee you win one. So if they win one, at least he can say that.
Is there a path to that?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
You think OKC is going to be like, all right, we can't handle this?
No, and that's
or like Denver,
that's
even
the perfect segue. Like, do you think right now, as presently constructed,
right,
the Mavs are a legitimate championship contender?
Well, hold the phone. They just got Caleb Martin now too. Come on now.
You know what? I got to check that package. Caleb Martin might have gone for more than Luka Doncic went for. No, but seriously, like as presently constructed. AD, Kyrie, Clay, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Caleb Martin.
Yeah.
Like, what's the seal? Like, everything breaks right. What's their ceiling? The conference finals?
This team looks great. If they had Luka Doncic, they could probably win the championship.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like, it's unbelievable.
It's also very old. That's the thing, too. It's just like you have maybe a 1 or 2 year window if you're lucky, and... Like I hate that AD gets dismissed in this because it's not like AD is any worse than like a top 10 player this season. It's just the fact that he's 32 years old and that you just don't trade Luka for anybody basically.
Yeah, they traded a top 10-ish player who's in his early 30s for a top 5-ish player who's in his mid 20s.
It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Without them being compensated in some insane way, which they weren't. It just not at all. Okay, as for the Lakers, I made the joke. They can't keep getting away with it. I very much meant it. Like I said in the monologue, if you had asked me last week, some of the names that were out there on the trade market, if the Lakers had enough to get any of those guys, at best like a second-tier star, I would have said probably not because, Reeves and their 2031 first, these things are attractive, but like if one of those guys is out there, another team with more will just blow the offer away. And stupid me, because a week later they got the fourth most valuable trade chip in the league, arguably. So thinking about the Lakers side of it now, I'll also say Luka could walk in a year and a half. You still make this trade 10 times out of 10 if you're the Lakers.
He's not walking, man. Stars don't leave the Lakers, let's be honest.
But okay, so the Lakers as presently constructed. Say they, at the deadline, just get like a solid but unspectacular big man to round out the rotation.
They definitely need a big. I think the good thing for the Lakers is that this seems like a good year to trade for a big. Yeah. Like, you can call Portland for any of their bigs, like DeAndre Ayton, probably pretty expensive, but Robert Williams is cheaper. Not that Yusuf Nurkic is the right option, but again, like, you can have him for free if you want to. You've already seen the reports, so they've called Toronto, for example, about Jakob Poeltl. Yeah. What would you want, real quick, for that? Like, if the Lakers want Poeltl, what are you asking for if you're the Raptors? Well, if I'm not Nico Harrison, I'd probably ask for their first round pick that they have, I think, in 2031 at this point, or maybe 2030. I would try to stress him as much as possible. I'd try to take that. I don't think I would just settle for Dalton Connect. He's an older prospect, and the Raptors do have several at least shooting wings in the pipeline that I think that it just creates a bit of redundancy. So I would try to take their 2031 pick. But even that, I don't know. I think for Luka, what he's really done a great job of is playing with lob catching centers. Yeah. So I would even look at, even for this year alone, could you get a Clint Capella, right, who is on the expiring, I think he's at 19 a year for Atlanta. Or can you get Nick Claxton, who looks like Brooklyn wants to sell everybody at any given moment here. You try to get one of those guys that at least gives something of an athletic presence. Quite frankly, that center position is going to have to get upgraded regardless. Yeah, Jackson Hayes ain't cut it. He's Christian Koloko, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not enough for a team looking to contend, but I don't even know, man. You also have LeBron and Luka. Like, have people taken this in? Like, LeBron's going to be single covered for the first time in 30 years. Man, it's wild because, like, obviously they need a big, and there's things they can do, especially going into next year, but it's like, worst case, they don't make any big move or even mid-tier move before Thursday's deadline. Yeah, you're still you're a flawed roster, but who in God's name, I don't care how good of a team you are, wants to play LeBron James and Luka Doncic in a best-of-7 series, in a small sample size type environment? Like, no one willingly wants that. No. Again, you get down to crunch time, and this is like one of the scariest teams possible. Also, if I'm the Lakers, like if I'm JJ Redick, I'm becoming player coach, baby.
Yeah, honestly, man.
Get me on the court.
Yo.
I want to hoop with these guys. This is history right here.
Yeah, JJ, Bill Russell, Redick. Let's go.
That's what I'm saying. Like, JJ, look, he still looks pretty fit to me. Like, I feel like he can still go out there and knock down the three.
Still needs his ring? Let's go.
That's what I would be doing if I were the Lakers. It's crazy. It's not to say that the roster is perfect. Like, honestly, weirdly enough, at least for the remainder of this season, depending on sort of what happens at the trade deadline, you could argue that both the Mavericks and the Lakers are a little bit farther from the title than they were before this trade. But again, you still make this trade a million times with a million.
Because of the long-term aspect of it. What I thought you were going to say is you could make the argument maybe Dallas is better just for the rest of this season, but...
no, there's no way.
Yeah,
no,
I agree. I was going to say better than the Lakers. Not better off than they were a week ago, but can you make the argument they're better than the Lakers literally just for the next 2 months of this season and then never again? But it does lead me to like a fun thought I keep coming back to, which is, one of the things people aren't talking about with this deal is these are two Western Conference teams currently in postseason spots, currently in playoff spots. Assuming maybe one of them gets hot. Well, the Lakers are already, I think, fifth. They're in contention for the top 4 seed. If AD and Kyrie can somehow stay healthy, like, it's not insane that this could be the 4-5 matchup.
Oh, this is what the NBA needs.
Likely? No, but it's not insane. And that it would just be the ultimate chef's kiss on all of that. For all of us, unless you're a Mavericks fan.
Well, I mean, I'm already looking forward to like their first meeting again.
Which is in like 3 weeks.
And, if you've seen the Luka Doncic press conference, because basically a lot of mud was slung at Luka on his way out of Dallas. Like a lot of reports of like, his conditioning's an issue. It's a really big contract. He complains to referees. Like, it's crazy. You're just picking flaws. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's ridiculous.
With a guy who's at worst, the 5th or 6th best player on the planet?
Yeah, exactly. You're dating a supermodel, basically, and you're like, wow, I don't know. Like, sometimes they show up a little late to dinner. It's like...
Come on, she hasn't won Sexiest Woman in the Year in 2 years, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, well, Luka's definitely not winning Sexiest Woman of the Year anytime soon. But, like, Luka did say that, like, yeah, it's definitely a little bit of added motivation to face him again. So, I mean, look, it's unprecedented. There's honestly like not really a great way to analyze this, just because there is no historical precedence. You would have to go across sports to look at sort of something similar to this. And like, yeah, I mean, this is the funny thing is it's actually a little bit good for the league, because I feel like the NBA hasn't had like a groundbreaking, like, I guess, transaction or something like this in a very long time, it feels like.
I think it's also good in the sense of, like, again, unless you're in Dallas, from the sense of how shocked we all were. Like, because even some of the big trades that have, happen every year in the NBA, for the most part, there's always whispers. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's playing trade machine stuff. I think the fact that this was, like, so out of nowhere, so shocking, literally, like, seasoned reporters who have been doing this for decades had to consider whether Shams got hacked. That's how shocking this was. I think that's kind of good for the league in that,
I like that, yeah.
You actually can say now, anything is possible. Luka Doncic got traded in his mid-20s, and no one knew about it, and no one could have imagined it. So, yeah, anything is possible. Go and have fun with any, like, trade proposal you want. The sky is the limit for your team and, like, what they can do. I think that is good for the league, as chaotic as it is.
Yeah, like, if any sports fan in your life has texted you, basically, and been like, yo, this is crazy, right? And then you've probably had this version of this conversation 20 times with various people about just like how this trade happened, what's going to happen from now, like, is some conspiracy theory attached to this. Like, I haven't had this feeling since like when KD went to Golden State. Yeah. That was 2016. Or even before that, like the Heatles decided the decision joining up in 2010. Like, it's on that scale. Now, of course, I think for Luka, as much as like it is a great trade for the Lakers, it is very imperative for Luka to actually win a chip with the Lakers, because that's the thing. It's like, yes, he's the latest superstar to join the Lakers, but for Laker fans, you're not really valid to them until you actually win that chip. Yeah,
every legend, every era-defining superstar they've had has won at least one title as a Laker.
And luckily, he's 25 years old. So he's going to be completely fine.
I think the best way to sum up how asinine this deal was from Nico Harrison's perspective, from Dallas's perspective, and I don't remember who tweeted it, but someone tweeted last night or a couple of nights ago that, like, Luka Doncic is so good at basketball that he's got the entire basketball world talking about Anthony Davis like he's Hassan Whiteside.
Yep. That's about right. Yeah.
Okay.
AD, yeah.
Last thing on the Luka trade before we move on here to the other multi-star trade that happened that feels like 10th fiddle.
Yeah, whatever.
Imagine you're Masai Ujiri. And when did this deal go down? Saturday night? The night before, the Friday night. Nico Harrison calls you and says, listen, Masai, I know this sounds crazy, but we're going to trade Luka Doncic. Now, after you hang up the first time because you think you're getting prank called, when he calls back and says, no, this is really Nico Harrison, I'm really going to trade Luka Doncic, what's your best offer? What is Will Lou's best offer for Luka Doncic had the Raptors been given a chance? Is it Scotty Barnes and every draft pick they want? Or no, is that actually too far for you?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, has Masai done a Nike shoe deal with anytime recently? Because apparently that's how these deals are done. I would tell you, okay, I'll give you Scotty and I'll give you this year's pick.
Yeah.
You know?
But that would be the extent of it. You're not like Scotty and a boatload of picks. It's like Scotty and like one pick, maybe one first rounder.
Twist my arm a little bit. I'll give you another first. Again, there was that report that was out there from an unnamed GM that was like, I would have traded my whole franchise for Luka. How many teams in the league would have traded their whole franchise for Luka? You go through it like, would Washington trade? I mean, what do Washington even have at this point?
Yeah.
But Washington would trade the whole franchise for Luka. Utah would have traded the whole franchise. Portland. I'm not even kidding. There's at least 10 teams in the NBA. You can get every single asset from them. The Raptors are included in one of those 10. Where it's like they will do anything for Luka. Because again, he's 25 years old. And of course, it's contingent on Luka agreeing to re-sign. But you still have the inside edge once you have him on your roster. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's like I said, I'll never get over this. I'm sure you won't either. I'm sure everyone out there won't, and especially in Dallas. I've never seen before. You've seen fans burn jerseys, do all that stuff when a player wants out and gets traded or free agents leave. I don't think I've ever seen a fan protest of a trade where they're leaving, sell the team signs outside, and it's almost like a vigil outside the arena for a guy who got traded.
Yeah, you've seen it. Like, people have brought coffins and cried outside of the Mavs arena. It's all they've vandalized the Dirk statue because it says loyalty never fades under there, and it's a great slogan for Dirk, but it obviously didn't really work out for the Mavs. I think what's also underrated about this is before this trade, Mavs fans, I feel like they love Nico Harrison. I feel like he actually did a great job of building a team that was just in the finals. Yeah. And yes, they got beaten pretty badly in the finals by the Celtics. But the Celtics don't even look like the Celtics anymore. Why would you not just ride with that team? Maybe add a couple more tweaks around the edges there. They already added Clay. I actually really like the Mavs team as is. And I think a lot of fans were really appreciative before this trade of oh, Nico's actually a good GM. Yeah. Look what he's done with us. And then it got flipped on its head.
Yeah, and to his credit, before Saturday night, a lot of the moves that worked out for Dallas were moves that myself and a lot of other people did shit on, taking that risk on Kyrie, giving up draft capital when they didn't have much left to take a risk on Kyrie at that point in Kyrie's career. Paid off swimmingly for them.
Wow, he did a Nike deal with Kyrie. So
I love that that's his go-to actually move. Does keep coming back to that's not even, it is funny, but that isn't even you being funny. That's literally what this keeps coming back to. PJ Washington, I believe, did a Nike deal with him and ended up in Dallas. But the Washington deal that Gavin is a lot of deals where you could say, what's Nico Harrison doing, ended up paying off. This one, I promise you, will not.
No.
Okay, like I said. There was another move in which multiple stars got traded and 3 teams were involved on the weekend, and no one cares because Luka Doncic got traded to the friggin' Los Angeles Lakers. But that other deal, of course, sees De'Aaron Fox go to San Antonio, which was his reported preferred destination. Zach LaVine head to Sacramento, and I think a couple ham sandwiches head to Chicago, as is often the case with those poor sad sack Bulls. Talk to me. How do you see Fox and Wemby fitting together? That's, I think, the first and foremost question about this deal.
So I think a couple of things. Number one, this must be the first time we've had stars forced their way to San Antonio. That just hasn't happened, right?
Even in their heyday, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's not like they were signing free agents. They just had the same roster, and then Boris Diaw got really good with them. And then they got Danny Green out of nowhere and Kawhi out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Stuff just happened for the Spurs and did a great job. But I think this is a real example of just Wemby's pull already. He's only a year and a half into his career, but it's very clearly stars are trying to line up to play with this guy because they know he's the next big thing. The good thing with the Spurs is this isn't it's not like they, empty the tank to get him. This is almost like kind of what Indiana gave up for Pascal Siakam. They're like, all right, we're not going to give you any of our prospects that are on our team. You know what I mean? Like the Raptors didn't get any of the guys from Indiana that are like really good, like Andrew Nembhard or Benedict Mathurin or Jarris Walker. You know, like, oh no, they didn't touch any of that stuff.
Not even a Ben Shepherd.
And then they're like, here's 3 picks that, like, you know, to varying degrees aren't that great. So they still have the means to go get other guys. Plus, they kept most of their top prospects. So it's kind of a no-brainer, really, for the Spurs. In terms of the fit, I would wonder, like, Fox has been definitely a number 1 option type of guy. He shoots a lot, between like 18 to 20 shots a game. Certainly a high usage player. Certainly deserving of that. He's a very good player. But, you know, I probably would want to see, first off, defensively, if there's a good fit there. The other thing, too, is just like, how much are you deferring to Wemby? I think when you request a trade to his team, you know that it's his team, right? But still, you know, he's still more of a shoot first than a pass first guy. The thing I like about it, though, is just the Spurs look super athletic. Like, the Spurs are already super athletic as it is. Jeremy Sohan's really athletic. You know, Stephon Castle has really come on strong this month, and he's looked really nice. Again, he didn't go in this trade. Wemby is an alien, literally. And then Fox is like, as far as point guards go, like, he's crazy. Like, he's got that John Wall speed and quickness. He led the league in steals. So I can see the Spurs just being a nightmare to play in transition in particular.
Yeah, and Fox is one of those guys, like, he's definitely not a consistent defender, but when he's engaged and locked in, he's had his moments where, like, he can be a good
for sure
defender at the point of attack. You put him in front of Wemby. I think that's good. I'm also interested to see just how much easier life gets for Wemby because, look, I mean, I did a monologue, a rant a few weeks ago about the Chris Paul effect and how much of an impact Chris Paul has had on Wembanyama and the Spurs, even as this, like, 39-year-old averaging less than 10 points per game.
Yeah.
But Chris Paul, at this stage of his career, doesn't demand defensive attention. De'Aaron Fox is the first guy Wemby's played with that is actually going to command some sort of defensive attention and not like necessarily pull guys away from Wemby, but warp the floor a little bit, right?
Sure,
like tilt defenses in a way where Wemby might get easier opportunities. And I think that's, you know, terrifying for opponents, but fascinating and intriguing for the Spurs and their fans because, like, what does this guy look like playing with another star-level creator?
No, that's a great question. I think that, like, up until Chris Paul came, it's not like anyone made Wemby's life easier. The only thing with Wemby, I feel like, is he's so young and he's still so unprecedented that it feels like a lot of the games he's just like, he just does whatever he wants, you know, like whatever his imagination comes up with, which could be like, let's throw it off the glass and then, like, you know, get it and dunk it over everybody, or like, let's block the highest floater you've ever seen and it's not a goaltending. Like, they call it goaltending, they review it, and they're like, actually, that's not goaltending. That's amazing. Yeah, like, it still feels like with Wemby, he's still trying out who he is, and he's still coming into his own. And so I guess the chance for him to do that alongside of a guy like Fox is going to be really exciting because I want to see even a more focused version of Wemby when you can cut out, okay, like, there's probably 10 plays a game that he makes that are just, like, purely experimental. If you cut that down to, like, 3 or 4 and focus on what he's already good at, which is, like, a million other things, you can get an even higher level out of him. But, I mean, yeah, the thing is the Spurs can still go out there and get another guy.
Yeah,
like, they can still get another guy.
Yeah, they still have, you know, their picks, some of the Atlanta picks. They've got a ton of draft capital. All their young guys still, like you said, they didn't get rid of any of them in this deal. They can get it. We've got all their picks that they own in the next 6-7 drafts here up on the board here. Okay, Sacramento. Yeah, that's I'm looking at it as we speak. Like, it really is still terrifying when you consider all that plus the young talent. The league should be terrified unless the Spurs hire Nico Harrison. That's the only way the league is not going to get murdered by the Spurs in the next year.
Well, you know, Wemby does wear Nike, so that's all it takes. The funny thing with this deal, too, is you look at it, like, Chicago's motivation for getting in this trade and giving up Zach LaVine is that they get their own first-round pick back for this year, which is crazy because that's what the Spurs gave them in the sign and trade for DeMar in the first place. Like, the Spurs are so good at management. They're like, oh, okay, in order to make this deal happen, we just got to give you back your own first. Yeah, go ahead, man. Take it.
And that pick was top 10 protected. So, like, it's possible the Bulls would have kept that pick anyway. Then it would have become top 8 protected the next 2 years.
Sure.
But, like, they look like they're finally actually accepting a rebuild and might be bad the next years. So it's actually possible the Bulls might not even have needed to get that pick back and would have just kept that pick anyway. But I digress. Like I said, the Bulls, just unbelievable. Like, when you just think of that franchise and, you know, everything they gave up to construct what I called the mid-3 with LaVine, DeRozan, and Vucevic, and then just clinging to that for too long. Arturas Karnisovas, their president, said a couple years ago or last year that he had the green light from ownership to do whatever he wanted, including rebuild if he saw fit. And he just chose not to and kept clinging to what was a play-in caliber core, waited too long to dismantle it. By the time he did, Caruso, who reportedly could have gone for multiple first-rounders last year, ends up just getting traded for Josh Giddey. DeRozan ends up in a sign-in trade with a couple second-rounders coming back because they waited till he was a free agent. And now LaVine, granted with LaVine a little different because his contract plus the aprons, it made him really difficult to move.
Yeah.
We're still talking about a 24-point-per-game scorer on almost 50, 40, 90 shooting. The fact that the best asset you get back is your own pick, kind of nuts.
Yeah, but they got Chris Duarte, man. Come on now.
Oh, what a wild thing. Okay, the Kings are the only other part of the deal, I guess, to talk about. Interesting. I don't think they're necessarily better or a contender, but it is interesting. They replaced Aaron Fox with Zach LaVine, different kinds of player. LaVine, much better shooter, more of a consistent three-level guy, not as athletic as Fox, not as much defensive upside. But we've seen LaVine and DeRozan be teammates before, and we've seen them in a big mid-three with an all-star big man. How much different is LaVine, DeRozan, Sabonis from LaVine, DeRozan, Vucevic?
It's not that different. I hate to tell you, it's not that different. Sabonis is a better player than Nick Vucevic, mostly because of his physicality. He's able to bring the ball up. He loves ripping down rebounds and then pushing the break and then turning his back to the play and doing a dribble handoff. It's like his go-to move. But it's still the same issues. I mean, the Kings are going to be pretty bad defensively with this collection of players.
Probably worse now.
Who on the Kings outside of Keon Ellis is even defensively minded?
No. Yeah, like maybe on his best day, Keegan Murray, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Keegan Murray's not some sort of stopper. Like, he just maybe has the right size for it. But everybody on that team is looking to score. They're going to be a very good scoring team. We know that already. But I think, when you're really bad defensively and you're going to be really good offensively, you're probably going to be average. Yeah. And that's what they were before this trade. They get to roll that over a little bit longer. I mean, Zach is actually having a really good year, as you mentioned. He's averaging 24 a game. He's shooting over 50% from the field and, I think 40 plus from
45% from three.
45% from three.
On 7 attempts per game.
Yeah. So, I think from their perspective, they might look at it this is still pretty exciting. He's still a very productive player. But again, it's even funny because they are still the team that you just don't want to get into a close game with because DeMar gets really terrifying in that kind of situation. But ultimately, you got to ask yourself, why are they in a close game every single night? Yeah, and it's probably because their defense is not good enough to create separation from their opponents. But I mean, this will be a fun playing team. Yeah, and
listen, they did actually get a decent amount of picks back in this deal. They did get, considering, I think where Fox was, the fact that everyone realized now where he wanted to be in a year and a half. I think considering that, the fact they got LaVine and a bunch of picks out of it is actually pretty good. Again, if you compare it to what the Bulls have gotten out of some trades the last few years, it's night and day. Last question on this topic. Back to the Spurs. This year we know they're a play-in competitive team, maybe get a little better with Fox, whatever. But just project till next season. So Wemby takes another Wemby-sized leap. Fox is just his average self. Doesn't get better or worse, just is what De'Aaron Fox is. And they don't add another star, but they're just a solid supporting cast around those two guys. Are they a championship contender next season?
Next season, no. No, that's a little too fast. I mean, I think they would need to make additional moves, which, again, they have all the ability to do so. But, yeah, I think there's still lots of issues that this team can run into. It's not even Wemby's amazing every single night. He still has weird little off nights, and I still want to see what it looks like when he's it's in a playoff series and teams get to scheme and match up against him specifically. By the way, Wemby has played in pretty big games. I mean, the Olympics, for example, he was pretty good.
Yeah, carrying his country.
Especially towards the knockout rounds, he was amazing. Group stage was a little quiet, but they still got steps to take. They still got to get chemistry right. But is Pop all right too? He's been out for a long time.
The reports are all that every time there's a report, it's he's recovering well, he is progressing, he's gonna be back. But I find it hard to believe he'll be back this season. We're in February now.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is a matter of health. You just take care of yourself first and foremost. But there are still other questions for me with that roster. They are still really young around the edges too. That you know, when they go to their bench, for example, I'm like, what's happening? Like, they got a couple more veterans, and they don't have to be like knockout veterans, but just a couple more veterans. Like, if they have the offseason that like Houston had a couple years ago when they're like, we're just going to bring in Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, and Jeff Green, like, that would really help bolster just a couple more guys that are consistent.
Yeah. Okay. Last topic I want to dig into with you. All-Star reserves were announced last week. Again, things that would normally be in like a weekly NBA show.
Sure.
You know, big topics. Oh, let's dig into like the final All-Star rosters and snubs. This week is just like, maybe we can squeeze it in for 5 minutes at the end. But one of the snubs was LaMelo Ball. And the reason I want to talk LaMelo Ball is because LaMelo Ball was the leading vote getter among fans, among East guards. 3rd in the player vote, 7th in the media vote. And so when you went with the aggregates, he didn't make top 2. He was not a starter. He then wasn't named a reserve because that's on the coaches. And like, let's be real, LaMelo there's a reputation there as being a bit unserious. I wouldn't call him exactly like a coach's player. Plus the Hornets stink. LaMelo's in and out of the lineup with injury. So not shocked that the coaches didn't vote him in. But at the end of the day, what this resulted in is, for the first time in NBA history, a player who led his fan voting category didn't make the All-Star team. And my question for you is, did the coaches get this wrong from the standpoint of all we've talked about with regards to the All-Star game the last couple of years is how little anyone cares about it because the players themselves don't care about it. It's not an entertaining product. Then you have this guy, which love him or hate him, talk about his impact on winning or not, whatever. Kids, fans genuinely seem to love this guy. His jersey's one of the most popular selling in the NBA.
Yeah.
Again, leading fan vote among East guards. Is it
his shoes pretty popular too? Not to be Nico Mannion, but
it's true.
Not to be Nico Harrison. Sorry.
But it's true. But so saying all that, did the coaches and everyone involved do a disservice to the game to not have this guy that, if nothing else, seemingly would have drawn a crowd?
Yeah, I mean, it's the All-Star game, man. I mean, like, LaMelo is like ideal for an All-Star game.
Exactly.
You know, like, I think the fans knew exactly what they're doing with that. LaMelo, by the way, if you've seen his first half highlights, they're ridiculous. Like, he's patented the one-legged, like, side fading 3. It looks like the worst shot ever in terms of shot selection. It probably is for most people. He's talented enough to actually make that shot. It's kind of like Harden's new step back. You know, he's incredibly flashy with the passing, with the way he's scoring. I honestly, like, I lean towards, like, just give the fans what they want. Yeah. I mean, the coaches, they're always going to reward winning. Like, when you see all the reserves, they're all from, like, winning teams. Yeah. They're always like, okay, the Cavs should have 2 All-Stars, or the Cavs should have 3 All-Stars. So let's put in Garland, let's put in Mobley, right? Like, who's more entertaining, Evan Mobley or LaMelo Ball? Like, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, we know LaMelo is more entertaining. I might even argue he's more entertaining than Darius Garland, who's a really valid pick as well. But they're just going to reward winning. And so I think for me, the idea of like the league changing from it exclusively being a fan vote for the starters was because they wanted to prevent Zaza Pachulia from going to the All-Star game because the entire nation of Georgia was voting him in, which was quite close, honestly. By the way, Zaza Pachulia is somehow the one, like, I guess, like, he's a role player. He's not even that notable of a role player. Again, apologies to Georgia. But he's had 2 rule changes now put in his place with All-Star and also sliding his foot underneath Kawhi.
Yeah, quite a legacy Zaza leaves behind.
He's a crazy legacy. Yeah, and plus all of Georgia loves him and his gigantic head. Not that I should be one to talk about that, but like, you know,
I wasn't gonna say it.
Just let him do it. You know what I mean? Like, if there's somebody that gets injured this week or next week and they're unable to play, Adam Silver should really just step in and be like, you know what? I'm going to be the popular. it's the easiest layup in the world popularity-wise to be like, you know what? If anyone's injured in the East, LaMelo going.
Yeah. There's also the argument, too, like I've made it 1,000 times over the years, that rosters have expanded, but all-star rosters haven't. They're still at 12 players. Also, just based on league expansion, there are more teams and more players. So making an all-star team now is harder than it's ever been because the all-star rosters comprise a smaller percentage of the NBA talent pool than ever before. So, first of all, there should be 15 guys per team, like 30 total All-Stars instead of 24. But I'm with you. At the very least, LaMelo should be the first injury replacement among East players because of what the fans wanted. And there's a devil's advocate part of it and that I was going to talk about where it was like, listen, if the complaint with the All-Star game is that players don't care enough about like competing, then you could actually argue that like LaMelo's the worst guy you can have in there because he's going to kind of be silly and he's going to, like everyone was laughing last year when Doncic or Jokic, I don't remember, was taking half-court shots.
Yeah, it was like Luka and Trey,
right,
like hugging each other or whatever.
Like LaMelo's going to do that stuff. So you could say, well, no, actually he'd be bad for it. But it's the point of the whole weekend, right? Like you can have him in some of the Saturday, the skills competition, like something. You can do stuff with them in addition to the game that the fans clearly wanted to see. I think they dropped the ball there.
Yeah, but also if you want to see LaMelo play like it's an All-Star game, just tune into any Charlotte Hornets game.
That's very
he
true.
treats every game like it's the All-Star game.
By the way, also his ankles are made of mush. So there's the possibility that even if he had made it, he wouldn't have played. But on the note about every Hornets game looking like an All-Star game because no one cares, no one plays defense, the Hornets are 0-3 against the Wizards. The Wizards are 3-0 against the Charlotte Hornets, and I believe 5-40 or 5-41 against the rest of the NBA. Maybe that, even though he didn't play in any or most of those games,
it doesn't matter.
Maybe that's reason enough for LaMelo to not get in.
Yeah, you know what? Neither team is happy about that. Because for me, I actually wanted to see, because the Wizards are bad enough this year that like they should be in contention for like, the 7-win Bobcats or like the 9-win. Was the Sixers back in the day?
Sixers back in the day,
the Sixers also threatened that on their own record with a 10-win season in the peak of the Morey years or the Hinkie years. But I mean, even going back to the All-Star thing though, I agree. Like proportionally, you should have 15 All-Stars. I think the league is always very hesitant just to like not affect sort of like historical precedent. It's like one of the reasons they want to move off of 82 game schedule. They don't want to move from 48 minutes to 40 minutes, even though Adam Silver is kind of in favor of it for a TV perspective. But like there are some years though, like you gotta admit, like the East has produced some nasty All-Stars over the years, like Goran Dragic going to the All-Star game. Like Nikola Vucevic going to the All-Star game.
Back in the day, do not want to take a shot at a Toronto legend, a Scarborough legend.
Kyle Korver going to the All-Star game. Jamal
McGlure
going to the All-Star game.
Even don't want to take a shot at a legendary Raptor, but Antonio Davis being an All-Star that year. Like the East has sent some very, very mediocre All-Stars.
Yeah, and we're in a good place this year in the East where it's like you could have put in like easily more All-Stars. Like Scotty Barnes is quality enough to go to the All-Star game. Tyrese Maxey's good enough to go to the All-Star game. Joel Embiid's not in the All-Star game due to injury. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. If they get to 15 and then they got some nasty ones plus some injury reserves, that's how you got like Kristaps Porzingis in the All-Star game.
Very true. Very true. All right, this is good stuff, man. It was a great show. As if anyone out there doesn't know where they can find their work, tell them.
Yeah, you can listen to the Hello and Welcome podcast, especially if you're a Raptor fan. We have Cash on quite a bit, actually. He's a friend of the program. And, the Raptors, man, you want to know where Bruce Brown is going? You want to know if they could turn Chris Boucher into some second-round picks? They want Kelly Olynyk's future? Stay tuned. No, actually, the Raps are up and coming. They're young. Scotty Barnes is really like making a big maturity leap this year too. They're actually really fun, and they're getting a lot of wins recently. So stay tapped in.
Yeah, show features you and the guy in your sweater.
Oh yeah,
Longstradamus.
Oh, another our good friend, both to me and Cash. Alex Wong's here in spirit. He could have just come too. He's free. Like he's chilling this afternoon. So.
All right, man. We'll always appreciate you coming in, spending time with us. Thank you to William Lou. Thank you to Nico Harrison for being so incompetent at his job that he gave us the content of the year, of the decade, maybe of our lifetime. Thank you to all of you for listening. For Will Lou, for Zach and Adrian in the control room, my name is Joseph Casciaro. This has been The Unfiltered Show. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in a few weeks. I'm gone for a couple of weeks, but we'll see you at the end of February.